elections. Let's bring in our panel. Senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright is with us again, and Nathan Gonzales, editor and publisher of Inside Elections and a Faith Nation contributor. So the indictment alleges that James, in 2020, signed documents that required her to occupy and use a 3-bedroom home in Norfolk, Virginia as her secondary residence. She was also prohibited from renting the property. These pledges then allowed her to obtain favorable loan terms not available to rental properties. But according to the DOJ, James did in fact rent out the home to a family of 3. So it's a little bit in the weeds there, but James, she has called the charges baseless. This is a quote, "This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system." The prosecutor in the case, we should add, was stating in the document that no one is above the law. Nathan, to you first, your reaction to these charges that were brought against AG Letitia James.
Well, one of the president's superpowers is convincing people that something like this is normal. And what I mean by that is, I know people may not agree with the cases that have been brought against President Trump or people in his orbit, but there's no evidence of President Biden directly messaging the Attorney General asking for an indictment. This is in the case of Trump to Attorney General Pam Bondi about James Comey, or the President Biden firing and hiring U.S. attorneys searching for someone to indict a political opponent. So this isn't normal. Now, if you're hearing a couple of terms and if you hear weaponization of the legal system, that means it is a legal case brought against you. If you hear it's just justice, then that is a legal case against your opponent. And so these terms are getting thrown around a lot. And in general, if someone is doing something wrong, there should be consequences. But there's frustration on the Democratic side that when people are convicted of things that are being done wrong, whether it's President Trump, that there are no consequences, or when there are convictions among other people that they are pardoned by President Trump if they happen to be one of his supporters. So this is unprecedented times that we're in.
Yeah, we should mention this was the grand jury was in Northern Virginia, in Alexandria, Virginia. Kelly, your thoughts on the Letitia James indictment, as well as the indictment of former FBI Director James Comey, who's accused of making false statements to Congress and obstruction of a congressional proceeding.
So look, let's make a fair observance of all of this. When President Trump was indicted by Letitia James, let's keep in mind that she ran for New York Attorney General on the campaign promise that she would prosecute then President Donald Trump. And then you look at this overall situation, here we are now. Elections have consequences, and while we're talking about lawfare and weaponization of justice, and the president did tweet something out or posted on Truth Social a couple of weeks ago to Pam Bondi as Attorney General about James Comey, the former FBI director, and Letitia James, the New York Attorney General. Now both of them are under indictment and facing charges. They're of course talking about their innocence. You have to remember that Donald Trump said the same thing. They was talking about his innocence and about weaponization, about lawfare. And so here we are in this strange environment where this kind of lawfare, or whatever you want to call it, or seeking justice is going on. To the president, he believes that both are facing the music now and facing trials, and this is a man who went through the system, and he believes it's now their turn, and he says this is the right way to pursue this. We will see what happens in a court of law now.
Yeah. On Capitol Hill, the government shutdown is in day 10. Lawmakers are still locked in a stalemate. Kelly, what's the White House saying about all of that tonight? Any sense of any movement?
No movement at this point. The White House is still stating, along with Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, that the Democrats have to get to the table and agree to a clean CR, continuing resolution. That is just, I mean, they actually handed it to the Democrats, and the Democrats are basically stating that they're fighting for the health care of 60 million plus Americans. So this back and forth continues, and the people who are hurting through all of this process are the American people. I asked the president on Monday in the Oval Office, I asked him, what's your message to the American people in terms of the pain that they are going to experience? And he responded to me saying the pain isn't being felt yet, but he would say to the American people to hang in there.
Yeah. Nathan, while I still have you here, I want to talk about the National Guard troops in some of the biggest cities in the United States. The city of Chicago was handed a victory, a federal judge ruling President Trump exceeded his authority by sending the Guard in to quell demonstrations outside of ICE facilities there. Portland now hoping for a similar ruling. Nathan, just your reaction to all of this, and do you think we see this continue, though? The White House is very busy. Do you think it continues down this track, too?
I think it's going to continue. It's clearly a strategy that the White House is in favor of in terms of using everything at their disposal in order to tamp down on crime, specifically in bigger cities. But I thought it was interesting the perspective of Republican Governor Kevin Stitt of Oklahoma, who talked about how if J.B. Pritzker, the Democratic governor of Illinois, were sending Illinois National Guard troops to Oklahoma, how the residents of Oklahoma would be up in arms. And I think that that's an important perspective on this, that it's not just, the National Guard in D.C., which is a federal district, but it's sending troops from one state to another state that doesn't want that. And it is, once again, a place that we haven't really been. The National Guard has been used, particularly in the civil rights era, but that was usually, the Arkansas National Guard in Arkansas, or Alabama National Guard in Alabama. But this cross-state National Guard is really a very different situation.
Okay, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. It's always good to see you. Thank you. Have a great weekend.